please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. I will call the August 6th Select Board meeting to order. We have a couple of additional announcements to add to the agenda, and under Citizen Departmental Committee Requests and Reports, we have removed number 3 in regard to the movie filming. It's just not quite ready with all of the logistics. So that will be moved to the 20th. And with that, we'll accept the agenda with those changes and move to announcements.
This meeting is being video and audio recorded. We continue to have mandatory outdoor water use restrictions in effect due to a level 1 drought condition. There are mandatory restrictions that limit lawn irrigation to 2 designated days per week based on street address. No irrigation allowed Friday through Sunday. And people can go to the town website. The link is on the select board agenda and obtain more information there. We have a public informational session coming up next Wednesday, August 13th for the Surfside Area Transportation Enhancements Project. There are roads in the Surfside area that are going to be reconstructed along with stormwater drainage and bike paths and other enhancements. And that, again, is here in this room next Wednesday at 5:30. And there's a link online if people want to join that remotely. We continue to have weekly pond monitoring for harmful algal blooms, HABs, and there's information about that on the town website. The link, again, is on the select board meeting agenda. Those can be very dangerous, so people should really check it out if they have pets and small children going around ponds. We are continuing to offer free tours of the Brant Point Shellfish Hatchery. Tours run Tuesdays at 11 a.m. through the summer, and you sign up 2 weeks in advance, and that information is on the select board meeting agenda. The Take It or Leave It facility is continuing to accept latex paint for recycling every Wednesday and Sunday. The Universal Waste Shed, which is a shed next to the Take It or Leave It, accepts batteries on Tuesdays and Saturdays from 8 a.m. to noon. Please recycle. And that information is also on the select board meeting agenda and on the town website. We have no select board meeting next Wednesday, August 13th. Our next meeting is Wednesday, August 20th. And we have 2 announcements from the Natural Resources Director, Jeff Carlson.
Thank you, Libby. And sorry these didn't make it on the agenda. Just wanted to let everyone know that next Thursday, August 14th, in this room from 5 to 7, the Harbor Plan Update Committee is going to have a public feedback and information session to take in public comment. It's going to be hybrid, so if you don't want to come in person, that's great. And also with that, if you can't make it, it will be taped in on YouTube. And they are accepting public comment through a Google Doc that's available on their webpage through August 30th. And then they'll get another bite at the apple. That's a state-approved plan that requires select board approval first. So they'll be back in front of you guys for that. So there may be another chance to get some more feedback to that. The other piece is not such an announcement for the public, but just something I wanted to make you guys aware of and the public as well, in kind of support of the environmental leadership strategic plan goal. We had a first at Natural Resources recently, and Leah Hill, our Coastal Resilience Coordinator, and Vince Murphy, our Sustainability Programs Manager, along with Devin McKay from Arcadis, had an article they've been working on for the last 18 months accepted by Frontiers in Climate to be published in their peer-reviewed journal. It's essentially a case study on implementation of the Coastal Resiliency Plan. We think it's really exciting to get recognized for work and be out there and be real leaders in that field. And we'll definitely get a copy for you guys to all see once we get it all finalized. But it's exciting, and I know we have a couple things similar, hopefully from the hatchery sometime in the near future, but it's nice to see good work get recognized by others. Thanks, guys.
Thanks very much, Jeff. And that is really an exciting announcement. It's really good to see that we're, again, in the cutting edge of various issues emerging and otherwise. That is it for announcements.
Are there any opening select board reports or comments?
Yes, Madam Chair. I think we owe congratulations to NCTV because they competed with several TV stations, local TV stations across the country. The Hometown Media Awards, and they actually won first place in 5 separate categories. And I think that's just terrific for our tiny little station. And just in addition, the station actually helped produce Penny Day's film Lost in Neverland, and that actually won a silver award at a similar competition. So again, we congratulate our television station. They're doing a great job of promoting the island and the citizens of this island.
Okay, anybody else?
Yeah, I'm going to say that I have had frustration with the parking situation over in the Amelia Drive, Waite Drive area in recent weeks, and I wanted the community to know that there is, that has been resurfaced and there's planning in progress. No timeline yet, but it is definitely on town administration's radar, so.
Thank you. I do have a fairly lengthy update of public comments. These are answers from the 23rd and the 16th and the 9th. And I will go ahead and read those. They're also posted on the website. On July 23rd, Penny Dye said, "Can the board send a letter to the State Department of Revenue noting that the select board voted to defer the community impact fee that was supposed to go into effect on October 1, 2024? The town's response: while the select board voted to delay local implementation of the community impact fee until November 1, 2024, the Massachusetts Department of Revenue, or DOR, has since issued formal guidance stating that the fee applies to all short-term rental contracts commencing on or after that date, even if they were signed prior to October 1, 2024. The DOR maintains statutory authority to interpret and enforce General Law 64G, including the applicability of community impact fees. As noted in the updated memorandum to the Select Board dated September 22nd, 2024, there is no reasonable expectation that the DOR will alter its position. Operators who disagree with the DOR's interpretation may pursue the matter directly with the agency through Mass Tax Connect. Given the DOR's formal position and legal authority in this area, the town does not intend to challenge its ruling. However, the town will continue to share available guidance with operators to ensure transparency and encourage compliance. Also on July 23rd, Matthew Peel: what is going on with the cell phone service on this island? Do we need more towers? Town's response: we understand that cell service on Nantucket can be unreliable, and the town has raised concerns with major carriers. However, this is not something the town has the authority or infrastructure to resolve. We do not own or manage satellites, towers, or cellular technology. The town relies on the same commercial services as residents and businesses. If you are experiencing service issues, please contact your provider directly. Unlike many places, Nantucket does not allow large cell towers due to zoning, geography, and aesthetic considerations. Instead, carriers use a distributed antenna system, DAS, small antennas mounted on utility poles. While less visible, DAS antennas have limited range, speed, and capacity. They're leased individually, so your provider may not be connected to the antenna nearest you, or it may be out of service. Coverage is especially limited in areas like Pulpus, Wawinet, and Quidnet, while it improves near Sconset, where AT&T and Verizon maintain larger installations. Ultimately, decisions to invest in more infrastructure are made by carriers based on demand, and Nantucket's low year-round population offers little financial incentive to expand. Also on July 23rd, Campbell Sutton: who instigated the website redesign? She is talking about the agenda and minutes platform. Before the launch, was there a mock-up of the website for people to test? Town response: The recent upgrade to the town's agenda and minutes portal was initiated by Chief Technology Officer Michael Alvarez following a notice from our website host, Civic Plus, alerting us that the town was approaching its allotted website storage capacity. A significant portion of this storage was being consumed by large media files attached to meeting records, many of which are rarely accessed. To address the growing limitation, the new agenda and minutes portal transfers meeting media to an unlimited storage package. This change not only resolves immediate storage concerns, but also enables seamless archiving into the town's Laserfiche digital record system. Furthermore, the upgraded portal positions the town to meet upcoming ADA compliance standards related to digital accessibility. Due to the time-sensitive nature of the upgrade and the need to avoid disruptions in service, we were unable to implement a trial or public preview period. We acknowledge that this caused some initial challenges for both staff and community members, and we appreciate everyone's patience while those issues were quickly identified and resolved. To help users navigate the new agendas and minutes portal, we've created a short how-to video on YouTube. Rick Atherton, also on July 23rd. Following up on Campbell Sutton's comments, it is virtually impossible to find past year's minutes. Consider reverting to the previous platform. Town response: the new agenda and minutes portal is designed to be more user-friendly and easier to navigate. At the top of the page, users will find 3 simple ways to begin their search. Calendar navigation: on the left side of the portal, you can browse by year and month to locate specific meeting dates. Event categories: this menu allows you to filter results by specific boards, commissions, or committees. Search bar: you can enter keywords or phrases to search not only meeting titles, but also the content within meeting packets. These tools make it easier for members of the public to quickly find the information they need, whether they're looking for a particular meeting or researching a specific topic. There are some known issues with the transition. Postings over the 2-week transition have yet to be transferred, and there are some issues with old postings not appearing correctly. We are working with Civic Plus to address these. Also directed to the YouTube video. 716, Bruce Mandel, related to non-health compliance or violation issues that are now being imposed on HHS. What is going to be done about this change in enforcement? Can the staffing of the department and its budget be adjusted to ensure the timely enforcement of non-health related violations assigned to them? Tell us where citizens now file requests for investigation of violations of laws, bylaws, and regulations that don't pertain to health issues. Town response: the town is aware that many issues, often not originally part of a department's core mission or day-to-day operations, can become institutionalized over time due to ongoing community concern or demand. Departments are increasingly being asked to take on responsibilities that fall outside their original structure, staffing, or mandate. This is a growing reality across nearly all town departments, many of which are managing expanding workloads with limited resources. The town is actively evaluating how to support departments in adapting to these shifting expectations, including through adjustments to staffing, budgeting, and coordination. Requests for investigation of violations are generally directed to the department with oversight for that issue in question. In some cases, it may require coordination between departments. All departments enforce state and local regulations according to their expertise and available resources. From 7-9, Val Oliver, what information has the town received since the blade failure? Town response: the town has shared publicly available information related to the blade failure on the town's website. Updates will be provided as additional information becomes available. Val Oliver, why was the suspension order lifted with a record of any kind, and why was the blade installation allowed to resume? Town response: the town is not privy to this information. This question should be directed to the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management and the Bureau of Safety and Environmental Enforcement, which are the federal governmental agencies with information responsive to this request. Val Oliver, what is happening? Is there an update? Town response, the town has provided an update on the town's website. Updates will be provided as additional information becomes available. Veronica Bonet, can you advise on the efforts the town has made to ensure these studies, environmental impact studies, are conducted and resolved? Town response, the town has requested environmental assessment studies from the Bureau of Safety and Environmental Enforcement pursuant to the Freedom of Information Act and anticipates their release to the town once the final report is complete. Veronica Bonet, why did the town omit any concerns regarding Vineyard Wind when the town wrote to the Department of the Interior Secretary Doug Burgum regarding South Coast Wind? Is this due to the GNA? Town response, Secretary Burgum temporarily suspended permitting activities pending review of protocols and practices for permitting offshore wind projects. The town wrote Secretary Burgum, offered to provide the town's perspective, and asked him to pay particular attention to South Coast Wind because South Coast Wind was the most recently permitted project at the time of the Secretary's suspension order. In addition, the town was considering whether to appeal South Coast's permit. Had the Secretary undertaken an independent review of South Coast Wind, the review could have removed the need for an appeal by the town in federal court. The town has not received a reply. That concludes a number of questions and answers from the last few weeks. And next up, we will move on to public comment for items otherwise not on our agenda for discussion this evening. We do limit topics to 3 minutes. I will see if anyone comes to the mic or online. Okay, sorry, I don't have that screen up. Did you say Amy?
Amy Eldridge is first.
Amy Eldridge, go ahead.
Hi, Amy Eldridge. I had a couple of comments. I'd just like to say that I thought under the circumstances last night that the town, the police department, the fire department, the Mass State Police did a phenomenal job with the incident on Main Street. But it brought some questions to mind about if that had actually been something more significant than what it turned out to be. The Mass State Police couldn't get a dog over here for 3 hours. And it just makes me worry about how vulnerable we really are 30 miles out to sea. And if there is any thoughts on training some of our current police and fire in these kind of specialized events because we are so far out to sea. And, community support from our neighboring communities is really difficult. And we were blessed to have been able to get the Mass State Police dog here to check everything out and clear the scene so that people could get back to picking up their semi trucks parked on South Water Street last night at midnight. But it's just concerns that I just saw that the town did a great job with what we had, but it just scares me to think in these new times that we're kind of left hanging out. So I just was wondering if there was anything you guys could talk about in the future to help us in these situations. I mean, God, I hope it never happens again. On another front, I drive Milestone Road 3 or 4 times a day. And I noticed that when Mass DOT finished their project, they came and seeded both sides of that new DOT project at Pulpus Road. And there are terrible weeds that have been growing up for 3 weeks. And I saw the state had sent somebody down and they were weeding it, but it just looks really ugly that they didn't really care about when they reseeded all of that there's big, chunky, stocky weeds. And it just looks terrible for the amount of money that project costs that we didn't have a good grassing over there. I think that's about it today. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Meg Ruley, online.
Hi, good evening. I just wanted to follow up. I was at the last meeting 2 weeks ago about parking in the Mid-Island area, and I didn't see any response to my question asking if the select board could expedite this. And I heard Ms. Moore mentioned her frustration in the area, but I did email late this afternoon with a few specific questions that I'm hoping can be addressed maybe at the next meeting. One is that I tried to find documentation for any type of public hearing when the 2 Fairgrounds Road parking lot became a municipal lot. It just one day kind of morphed into a big parking lot for trucks. And then probably 2 or 3 years ago, a shed was installed and it all of a sudden became a park and ride lot. And if you can share the dates of when there was a public hearing, if there was one, I'm trying to find the minutes and I haven't been able to. Also, the paid parking and the Wait Drive parking pass proposals that have been brought to the select board a couple of times since May at least. Is there going to be a hearing about that once the final proposal is presented for comment and feedback? And then what is the timeline for the paid parking and the Wait Drive parking pass implementation program? And then lastly, can and will the select board host a moratorium on waivers and variances issued by zoning and planning boards with regards to parking, just the number of parking spots required and the size of those parking spots in this neighborhood, which I would say is like Amelia Drive, Tacoma Way, Wait Drive, Young's Way, Jones Way, for all the businesses and affordable housing developments who are under review right now within 1 mile of this area, until a comprehensive parking plan can be approved and actually implemented. So those were really specific questions that I was hoping to get some feedback on, and appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Meg. We'll get back to you. Is there anyone else this evening? Okay, seeing none. There's no new business. Approval of minutes, warrants, and pending contracts. We did have a change to the 5:30 July 23rd minutes that have been provided.
With the change, I'll move approval.
To everything.
All of them, yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries unanimously, 1 through 4. Consent items, just one.
So we have gift acceptances, and the recommendation is to accept the following gifts and donations to town agencies. Planning and Use Services Plus, donation of $6,000 from Tuscana Corporation for bike path improvements in connection with the rear lot subdivision special permit at 12 Nobska Way. Human Services Department, a gift of $100 from Kathleen and Louis Crampton for the Saltmarsh Senior Center. Department of Public Works, a donation of 5 granite public way markers valued at $1,800 each, a total of $9,000. From Neil Patterson Incorporated for the Roads and Right-of-Way Committee. I would move to accept all gifts and donations for their designated purposes with thanks to the donors.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That carries unanimously. Next up, we have Citizen Departmental Committee requests and reports. We have 2 items, A and B, from the town clerk. A, request for appointment of election workers, and B, request to designate election constables and election workers as special municipal employees. Are there any questions, comments, or motions?
I'd move approval of both.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries unanimously for A and B. Thank you, Nancy. Nantucket Historical Commission appointments. We have 3 seats to appoint.
So I'll review this if that's okay. So as we've been discussing, you have 3 seats available, 1 seat with a term ending 2027 and 2 seats with terms ending 2028, and you have 7 applicants. Abby De Molina, who is the sole incumbent who applied for the 2028 seat, Linda Williams for the 2028 seat, Caroline Baltzer for the 2027 seat, Lee Tesser for the 2027 seat, Barbara Halstead for the 2028 seat, Betsy Tyler had no preference, and Amy Cohane had no preference. The applicants are going to be given a chance to review their applications tonight, but before they do that, I just wanted to know, we are going to do 2 separate votes, one for the 2027 seat, and I'll review this again right before, but the applicants would be Caroline Baltzer, Lee Tesser, Betsy Tyler, and Amy Cohane. And then 2 seats for the 2028, and that would be Abby DeMolina, Linda Williams, Barbara Halstead, Betsy Tyler, and Amy Cohane. So I will start in here. Is Abby here? I don't see her online. Linda Williams? Caroline Balzer is in the audience. Go ahead.
I'm Caroline Balzer, and I'm applying for the seat on the Historical Commission, and I hope that you will think favorably of my application, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thanks, Caroline. Lee Tesser, I'm going to allow him to talk. Lee, if you want to unmute yourself.
Yeah, good evening, everyone.
If you just want to introduce yourself and talk about your application or any comments you want to make to the board.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I submitted an application looking to get involved with the town government if possible. My application, I think reflected, I've been a construction attorney for 39 years, and the Historic Commission was of interest to me because some of my work involves representing public owners that perform historic-related preservation projects, contractors that are involved in that process as well. And yeah, so I just found it to be an interesting commission to hopefully be involved in and do some good work.
Great, thank you, Lee. Next would be Barbara Halstead.
Hello, I'm Barbara Halstead. Hold the mic down. I'm very tall. I wanted to tell you a little bit about my background and interest in historic architecture and historic preservation, which goes back a very long way. I actually have a BA degree in architectural history. Before I moved to Nantucket in 1994, I was a volunteer for Historic Annapolis. I was actually awarded Volunteer of the Year for Historic Annapolis in that year. We were helping to protect their very beautiful colonial structures there. Since I've been on Nantucket, I've served on several other boards, including a Safe Place. I was actually president of that board for 5 years. I served on the board of the Nantucket Skating Club to support the Nantucket figure skaters. I'm a member of the Nantucket Garden Club, and while I was on that board, my job was historic gardens and garden history and design. And one of my tasks was to get 69th Street, Main Street, the Beinecke Apley Garden, registered with the Smithsonian Archive of American Gardens. Took years, but we finally got it done. So that garden is now registered. But most importantly, for the past 10 years, I've been on the board and executive committee of the Nantucket Preservation Trust. I'm very interested in Nantucket and in its historic structures and streetscapes. I think we need to realize how important it is to preserve those things on Nantucket. Nantucket has so much more to preserve than any other communities, and I'm interested in helping do that. Questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Betsy Tyler is online. I'm going to bring her in. Betsy, you just need to unmute. Great.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I've been a resident of Nantucket for 40 years and have been studying Nantucket history for that many years. I worked as a professional librarian at the NHA and the Athenaeum, and I was the first Obed Macy Research Chair of the NHA. So I've been doing deed research for the Nantucket Preservation Trust for more than years and have contributed the documentation for 131 house markers. I've written 30 house histories, including the Athenaeum.
Betsy, I'm sorry, your mic or voice is going in and out.
I'm sorry. Anyway, I've been researching and writing about Nantucket history for many years. And this summer, I've been working with the Preservation Institute Nantucket as they surveyed the West Monomoy, New Guinea, Newtown area, documenting all the houses. And I've worked with the students, teaching them how to do deed research and find primary source material to determine the dates of houses. So I'm really interested in the historic architecture of Nantucket. And I'm also interested in all facets of Nantucket history, really. And I hope I can contribute to the commission. I'm always eager to do more research. I did, when the Board of Selectmen was debating the Coon Street issue, whether to rename it or not, I did the research for all the houses on that street and discovered that the original name of the street was Independent Court, which is what has been chosen as the new name for that street. So I'm eager to use my skills at research to help the commission in whatever issues come up. And I hope you'll consider me. Thank you.
Thank you, Betsy.
I have a question, because
Oh,
I couldn't
go
hear
right
it. What was the original name of the street, Betsy?
Independent Court.
It still didn't, it's still.
Independent Court.
Independent,
Court,
okay, I
but
got
we
it,
na-
thank
But we
you.
named it Independent Way, and I think that was because there was something conflicting that was too similar.
There's an Independence Court downtown.
Yeah, that's what it was.
All right, and lastly, Amy Cohen. Amy, go ahead, just unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Thank you, Select Board members, for the chance to say just a few words about my application. I've gained a deep appreciation for the scope and importance of NHC's work by watching many of its meetings online, as well as consulting with several of the commissioners regularly over the past 2 years. I'm so impressed by the expertise and dedication of the commissioners, how collaboratively they engage with each other, the HDC, the town, the state, and preservation groups across the island. I've been a lifelong visitor to Nantucket and a resident since 2018. Leading an 18-month advocacy effort at Mariner Way showed me how vital, how absolutely imperative it is to show up consistently, respectfully, and with purpose to protect and preserve our beloved island's important historic resources. I believe my outside perspective, because boy, I really am following some incredibly impressive applicants. And I'll just humbly say my outside perspective and background as a seasoned marketer and operations executive and leader could bring real value to the commission. I'd bring passion, energy, humility, and strategic insight. And I'd be honored to serve. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy. I see that Linda Williams just walked in, if she would like to come and speak on her application. And I did want to note that Abby DeMolina did speak to you previously about her seat, so.
I did also speak to you previously because Abby and I and Carolyn all put our names in on time, the first time it was advertised. And I know when Erica emailed me, she said, which one do you want? I don't care if it's the 1 year or the 3 year. But I've been at this a long time. I've been here 72 years, almost. Forget you ever heard that. And I've worked with Holly very closely. I do a lot of historic research, and I've got multiple members of my family buried up here from the 17 and 1800s. So I spent a lot of time in historic research, and I love this island. So you have my resume. Thank you. I just had a site visit, so I have to rethink where I am right now.
Thank you. Okay, so first vote is going to be for the 2027 seat, and the applicants are Caroline Baltzer, Lee Tesser, Betsy Tyler, and Amy Cohen. If you want to, we're going to do this by paper ballot, and everybody will pass their votes to me, please.
You just repeat so we don't make any.
Sure. This is for the 27 seat, and it would be Caroline Baltzer, Lee Tesser, Betsy Tyler, and Amy Cohen. So you would vote for one person for that. And I think you know this already, but just don't forget to put your names on your slips of paper. Caroline Baltzer received 1 vote from Ms. Hill. Betsy Tyler received votes from Mr. Dixon, Mr. Fee, Dr. McNabb, and Ms. Moore. So Betsy Tyler is the seat with 4 votes. Thank you. Next, you're going to be voting for 2 candidates for the 2028 seats, and the applicants to choose from are Abby DeMolina, Linda Williams, Barbara Halstead, Betsy Tyler, oh, sorry, not Betsy, we're taking her out of it since we already put her in there, and Amy Cohen. Huh? No. Okay. Abby DeMolina received votes from Chair Hill, Mr. Dixon, Dr. McNabb, and Ms. Moore. So that's 4 votes for Abby. Linda Williams received 1 vote from Chair Hill. Barbara Halstead received votes from Mr. Dixon, Mr. Fee, Dr. McNabb, and Ms. Moore. So that was 4 votes for Barbara. And Amy Cohen received 1 vote from Mr. Fee. So we have Abby DeMolina and Barbara Halstead. And thank you all for who applied for these seats. It's always a difficult decision for the board, and there was a lot of great candidates.
Yeah, congratulations to everyone. They're very, very qualified candidates. And it was a slightly difficult process this year with the way it was advertised.
And
So
I just want to know,
bearing with us.
Yeah, Madam Chair, like I said the last time we voted, I think this year we've had the best slate of candidates we've ever had.
for everyone who was appointed, you'll be getting emailed letters of appointment, but just please note that you are going to need to go to the town clerk's office and get sworn in before attending your first meeting. Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have real estate items. Request for approval and execution of purchase and sale agreement, quitclaim deed, and settlement statement for town-owned yard sale parcel known as 8 Nichols Road.
Thank you. I'm Tracy McDonald. I'm the real estate manager. So tonight I am presenting this conveyance for 8 Nichols Road. I think as the board knows, I receive many calls weekly about yard sale matters that have been in the backlog for a long time. and tonight I'm presenting one of the oldest matters. As part of the yard sale program and a positive vote of Article 86 at the 2004 annual town meeting, in addition to a request for proposals in 2005, Mr. and Mrs. Sproul were awarded Lot 161 on Land Court Plan 5004-D, which is located in the middle of their abutting property. They have been through a long journey of attorneys, town meetings for additional authorizations required, title issues, and land court for myself and town council to be before the select board today, requesting approval for the conveyance of the property known as 8 Nichols Road, which is approximately a 5,000 square foot non-conforming lot in a Lug 3 district that the town acquired through an eminent domain order of taking, and will be combined with the Sproul's abutting 50,000 square foot property at 10 Nichols Road. In 2011, based on the terms of their purchase and sale agreement, they paid in full the $51,000 purchase price amount. This matter is an example of the complicated nature of some aspects of the yard sale program, and Mr. and Mrs. Sproul have been patient and understanding, working together with myself and Attorney Marsh, and I know we are all grateful to finally have received the land court order providing the ability for the town to convey the parcel now owned by virtue of Certificate of Title 30038. I ask the Select Board to approve and execute the transactional documents in the form prepared and reviewed by both Town Council and the Buyers Council, and Attorney Marsh and I are happy to answer any questions you may have tonight.
Any questions, comments, motions?
Move approval?
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That carries unanimously.
Thank you so
Tracy and
much.
Nikki. Next up, monthly town manager's report, departmental report from
Thank you.
IT.
The Chief Technology Officer, Mike Alvarez, is coming up. He and Deputy Director Jordan Petkov, Danny, are going to be taking you through this presentation. As you know, this is another departmental overview in a series of departmental overviews that we are refining as we go annually. And previously, you've heard from IT, and they gave an overview probably about a year ago-ish on their department, their budget, their capital projects, things like that. And now we're getting more into current issues, challenges, opportunities, and things on the horizon and that are in actively underway.
Thank you, Libby. Yep.
Sorry, before we start, can we please ask everyone in the audience to not carry on conversations while other people are speaking? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Mike Alvarez, Chief Technology Officer for the town. Also with me is Jordan Danny Petkov, our Information Systems Deputy Director. Which might move on to the next slide, sorry. So this is our agenda for the evening. Just a quick overview here of what we'll be going through. You can go ahead and advance to the next slide. So our IT department snapshot. First things first, I want to go over that, as you can see, we're a pretty busy department. We work pretty quietly behind the scenes, make sure the town maintains smooth and efficient operations. We have one staff opening currently. It's the IT generalist position. It's currently posted, and we are looking forward to applicants. Please note that this is an entry-level position for the IT department. Also, I do want to quickly note that this past summer, we've had the wonderful opportunity of having two interns, Galen and Gio, both Islanders, one summer resident, one longtime summer resident, and another high school graduate. And it's been an absolute honor and pleasure to have them working with us this summer. We can probably move on to the next slide. I will take questions at the end, or please stop me if at any point someone does have a question or wants me to touch on something. Just a quick look at our FY25 projects. Quite a few things happened over at 2 Fairgrounds Road. We had a network infrastructure enhancement over there, which also allowed for the placement of our new IT office for more space for our IT folks, as well as the document scanning project that's kicked off over at Plus. Also, major upgrades to switches at the town building at the end of the water department. We've also had both a big a big deployment for Cartograph and ArcGIS, which is officially launching, I believe, next week for the town. And it is the sewer, water, and DPW program that's going to be helping us maintain our inventory for all of their stormwater and road improvement projects and so on. And then lastly, of course, the new agenda and minutes platform that happened right at the end of FY25 that I know got a few comments. One thing to note in that initial response that was written last week or the week before, the 2-week period of documents that were missing are now up on the website. And we've identified that one board, and unfortunately is HDC, has several of their agenda packets that weren't transferred over correctly. However, the packets themselves are still viewable online via the agenda center. We are working on making these past 2 years of packets more readily available in an easier format. Basically, they just need to be broken up. They're way too large. If you have any questions on the website, I'm glad to take them, or if you guys want, we can wait at the end of the presentation. Otherwise, move on to the next slide. Just some upcoming projects and needs in the town for FY26 and beyond. This January, we'll be starting with the virtual server infrastructure upgrade. We're going to be upgrading our virtual servers as well as the switches that manage them. This is both at 4 fairgrounds and at 1 milestone. This is the lifeblood of our information technology systems. It hosts over 40 of our servers and is how we operate day to day. We can move on to the next slide. A request that we're putting in for FY27 is for a new town phone system. We brought this up last year. Unfortunately, it did not get through approval, but we're really looking at needing to upgrade the current town phone system that we have. It doesn't quite support our hybrid and remote workers, and this was also now going to include not just core town operations, but also public safety, but excluding 911, not that phone system. So just be office phones and so on as well for public safety, and so fire, harbor master, and police. We can move on to the next slide. And then the other big project we're looking to get going in FY27 is switching over from our permitting platform of Energov to OpenGov. The Energov platform did not prove to be as useful for us as we had hoped. We had a lot of problems getting stuff up and going. We are still working on that platform and are still actively supporting it, and we'll continue to support it for the next couple of years, so it's not going away. And new features and new permits will still continue to be added, but we will be changing over. The hope is to change over to a better, more user-friendly for not only staff, but also the public. We can move on to the next slide. A couple of things I wanted to bring up was, as CTO, advocacy for some of the other IT departments in the town, specifically those at the airport, public safety, and schools. So I just want to make note of a couple of projects that they're going to be coming to you and FinCom and Capcom for. Number one is the airport is looking to replace some infrastructure, a bunch of switches and so on, as is the school. These are just desperately needed. And for public safety, they're doing a last leg fiber connection down Pulpus for emergency services, and also looking to hire a IT specialist in public safety for additional staffing. We can move on to the next slide. And actually now I'm going to hand it over to Jordan Petkov, the Deputy Director.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jordan Petkov. I am the IT Deputy Director for the town. Prior to my promotion, I was holding the title of System Security Administrator, a position that was established with the support of town manager and this board to further align with the strategic plan for efficient and effective town government. Can we move to the next slide, please? I'm going to touch on some cybersecurity campaigns, and one of the, as you can see, we run monthly cybersecurity campaigns that are sent to town employees, and those are mandatory. The goal of those campaigns is to further educate and equip our town employees with the tools to be digitally responsible. Earlier this year, we also issued another campaign that was for regulatory boards and commissions. You participated in that campaign. We continue to collaborate with airport, public safety, and the school district, and help them and support them with their cybersecurity campaigns, especially with those users who use our municipal budgeting software. Right after the town meeting, me and Eric Bird, who is our current cybersecurity administrator, we both attended the Massachusetts Cybersecurity Municipal Summit in Worcester. I'm happy to report that we continue to collaborate with CISA, MSISAC, and DHS Fusion Center in Boston. Those are organizations that are very supportive and helpful. They provide a lot of tools, a lot of information for us to be equipped and better tackle issues. Next slide, Erica. A big part of our cybersecurity campaigns is, like I mentioned before, to empower employees, to equip them with better tools to be able to react to the ever-changing scenarios that we come across every day, including recent years with introduction of AI. Phishing campaigns, phishing emails are coming more and more sophisticated. Recently, we've seen fabricated documents. You can even get a phone call pretending to be somebody else. The AI is just constantly evolving. So a big part of that is to make sure that our employees are better equipped to be able to react on time and to definitely avoid a lot of costly cybersecurity incidents that can happen. I understand that a lot of the times those trainings can be, I would say, annoying for a lot of us, and I understand that. But I would like to give a pat to all town employees, pat on the shoulder, and thank everybody for their continuing completion of the trainings. I'm going to also give a big shout out of town manager and all the department heads. We're continuing to see 100% completion, especially in departments who are highly targeted, like finance, HR, our two utilities companies that are water company and sewer. So big shout out. They've been great in making sure that everything's completed on time. And that's about it. Mike?
Thank you very much. If you have any questions or anything you'd like to share, we're here to take those questions for you.
So I have a confession to make.
Yes.
It took me repeated trainings to get it and stop falling for phishing emails that you guys craft. They're very crafty. So they're intentional phishing emails that are sent to all of us that have town emails to try to catch us not catching it, and keep getting sent back to further training. So for anyone who is reluctant to do the training, sometimes it's the fifth time does the charm.
And one thing I'd like to note on the training is that we provide this training for not only you folks, but our staff and employees across the town. But this is applicable in your real, like just your day-to-day every use email. These these phishing attempts don't just stop at work. They come after you and your personal accounts as well. So this is training that's applicable to the rest of your life.
Mike, I will say that the trainings are also very helpful for this because in the trainings it identifies things that are in current trends with phishing emails, and we do get fake emails that we have to report occasionally, and they go to you and you say phishing alert, et cetera. So they do work.
They do.
I just, if you could go over a little bit, there's essentially three systems: our system, public safety, and the school?
And airport.
And airport.
Yes.
Does that make sense operationally, or is it just everybody wants their own little fiefdom?
So a couple of things. There would have to be a structural, I think have to come from administration, select board, you guys, for some of that structural stuff to happen. School, I believe, has to be separate for budgetary reasons. That said, we still help them out with their cybersecurity as much as we can, and I'm on the phone all the time with Stephanie. So anything she needs from us in the town, we are more than willing to provide. It's more of a sharing of resources more than anything else in that regard.
But in your professional opinions, forget the school, since the school has, for legal reasons, has to do their own. Does it make sense that we have two systems or three systems? I mean, what would you recommend?
I would personally recommend combining. That would potentially make things easier. I recognize that may take more political will as well. So I'm not, but it would be more financially responsible to have things combined.
I know about political will. I mean, they all report to the manager and to us. If you think that's what we should do, maybe you should
I've
push
expressed these before.
Push
yes.
that a little more.
Okay. Well, yes. Like I said, I've expressed these before, but this is, I do understand this would take long-term planning. This isn't something to happen overnight. So, yeah. We are putting forth as well in our for FY27 for a new IT assessment. We had one in 2016. It's what created the CTO position. And so we are due for another assessment. And I think this will probably be a big portion of that, something we can focus
I
on.
just see inefficiency or, who's in charge. I mean, you should be in charge of it all.
Thank you. Yes, and certainly there's a lot of work to be done. And I mean, I certainly want to congratulate the folks at Public Safety, and Airport is via vendor. They're doing good work. I don't,
I'm not criticizing it. I'm just thinking efficiently.
Yes.
You should be running it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Nice job.
Yeah, Malcolm just had, it's interesting, and it's different, but it's not the same, but the school and Park and Rec, we're running all different lawnmowers.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they got the same lawnmowers, and now when something happens, they can fix them and they can share parts. And I think that's, I'm looking at it simplistically, but I think that's kind of what Malcolm is talking about.
I fully understand. Yeah.
Yeah, and so in some ways, if we're going to be making investments, it would be great to be buying all the same lawnmowers. So anyway, it's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Mike, thank you to you and Danny and Eric for always being there when we have an IT issue. Like we just had the 2-factor verification. That was very easy. So thank you.
Nice. Thank you.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
That's all. Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next up, under Select Board Reports and Comments, you're going to continue to discuss short-term rental bylaw articles. So I am going to step away from the table. Matt will chair.
I will take it over. All right, I see some of the same faces here this week. We have, I'm not sure what an update we have. I know Town Council has had some conversations with, I think this week, or maybe he has, Mr. Giorgio, would you like to start?
Sure. Thank you, Matt. I have indeed been having conversations with various stakeholders who have contacted me to discuss potential approaches to short-term rental regulation. I would first like to say that nobody has indicated to me that they have a present intention of filing a petition for a special town meeting. That's not to say that they haven't gathered signatures or might be filing, but nobody has indicated to me that that's imminent. So I think that's good news because based upon my discussions, I think it's going to take a little bit of time for some of these proposals to come together. And most likely, it would be best to delay having a town meeting until hopefully there's some coalescence around at least one, possibly more approaches. I've also had discussions with the Plus department, both the director and the deputy director. And my understanding is that they will be discussing with the planning board, possibly having the planning board propose an article that they would recommend, and then, of course, hold a public hearing and proceed in that direction. We do, assuming that there is no special town meeting, I think it would be helpful if the planning board or any other town board wanted to propose something, that be done prior to the deadline for the submission of citizen warrant articles for the 2026 annual town meeting. And that date has not quite been set, but it's typically sometime in let's say mid-November. And it would be nice if there could be as I said, a coalescence around a particular approach before that date in order to minimize the number of petitioned articles that are being put forward. There are a number of different approaches that I'm aware of. You all, I believe, had a discussion with Arthur Reed, who has proposed a particular approach to regulating short-term rentals through zoning. He and I have had a very good conversation, and he has submitted a revised proposal to me, which I have commented on. The issue there is how do we move forward without placing the town in jeopardy of a legal challenge based upon the dormant interstate commerce clause, which, as you know, in a number of other decisions in other jurisdictions, the courts have found that short-term rentals that give preferences to the primary residence of the owner, for example, or restricts short-term rentals only to the primary resident, have run afoul of the dormant commerce clause. So we have to be careful about putting forward a proposal that can minimize the potential legal challenges associated with reliance upon the primary residence concept. I don't think we're quite there yet with Mr. Reed's proposal, but we are continuing to have discussions and to look at various alternatives. So that's one approach that I think you may be aware of, although what was in your packet 2 weeks ago has changed considerably, and it is still what I would call a work in progress. I have also had discussions with Caroline Balser, who is contemplating a somewhat different approach, which would be to address the short-term rental regulation and the ability to rent in general through an amendment to the zoning bylaws definition of principal use, which would restore the language from the 2015 version of the bylaw, which expressly addresses rental as well as ownership, but would also indicate that rentals would include short-term rentals. So that is another approach that is at least being contemplated. I have not seen any final language from Ms. Balser, nor have I seen, as I said, anything final from Mr. Reed. But I have indicated that, and this may be subject to some discussion or disagreement, but I continue to believe that amending the zoning bylaw in order to address the use, that is, allowing short-term rentals in some fashion, and then relying upon the general bylaw, Chapter 123, to put in further guardrails surrounding the actual operation of short-term rentals, which could include a limit on the number of days you can rent during the high season. It could include the number of rental contracts or minimum changes in occupancy. But I continue to believe that it's best to put those into the general bylaw. Although, obviously that's just my opinion. But there are a couple of reasons why that I think is a good idea. One of which is any of these zoning proposals that I've seen would specifically require compliance with Chapter 123 in order to be able to take advantage of the short-term rental allowances. And then also, this gets a little bit esoteric, but you may recall in your Chapter 123 bylaw, we added a number of enhanced enforcement provisions, and I know enforcement has been a very big issue. But under Chapter 64G, the law permits short-term rental bylaws to include a new enhanced penalty, which is known as a civil penalty. And your bylaw does include that language. We drafted that into your bylaw. It was approved by the Attorney General. And you can assess a civil penalty of up to $5,000 per violation for a violation of the general bylaw. The same does not hold true with respect to your zoning bylaw. And in another case, I had the Attorney General indicate that enforcement under zoning is limited essentially to the non-criminal disposition ticket of $300. So I think there are some good reasons to think seriously about putting those guardrails in the general bylaw. I am keenly aware of the comments in the past about that may make it too easier to change the bylaw in the future, because as you know, a general bylaw only requires a majority vote. And that really is a policy question for the voters to ultimately decide on. There have been other proposals that have been discussed that potentially would amend the zoning bylaw by adding a new accessory use provision that applies only to short-term rentals. And again, with certain guardrails, short-term rentals would be deemed an accessory use. I think the good thing about all these proposals that I've heard is I believe that they will likely moot the current litigation and any other pending cases, as long as the town addresses short-term rentals in a reasonable fashion under the zoning bylaw and steers clear of the dormant commerce clause. So that I think there are a lot of different approaches here that will achieve what I believe is the select board and the town's general objectives, which is to make sure that this decision is resolved locally and not by the courts. Now, one question you might be thinking of is, well, if we don't call a special town meeting, I think there are two risks. The first risk is that somebody might jump the gun and file a petition with 200 signatures for a special town meeting. And as you know, you have 45 days to call that special. That should be discouraged as best we can. And I know the board has expressed that concern. And as long as we have I think as long as progress is being made towards a resolution, whether it comes from the planning board, which I think would be the best approach here, because they're the planning board is the one that submits most zoning amendments to town meeting, and they're experts in that area. If they can put something together, I don't know if they will, but if they can put something together before the deadline, as I said, for the special town meeting, I'm sorry, for the submission of citizen articles for the annual town meeting, that might help with getting the town to reach a consensus. And then the other issue about waiting until the May town meeting is, of course, the appeals court appeal. And while it's very, very difficult to assess how long that might take, I have had consultations with Attorney Pucci, and he and I are in agreement that it is more than likely that that appeal will not be finally resolved through a decision before the May 4th annual town meeting. Now, we could be proven wrong, but appeals take quite a while, especially an appeal where there's been such an extensive record at the land court. 2 different trials over multiple days. There are transcripts, there are exhibits. All of that has to be assembled by the land court before this appeal can even be docketed in the appeals court. And once that happens, there's a whole briefing schedule established, briefs are filed in seriatim, and then the appeals court would likely schedule an oral argument, which would be held, and then there would be a period of time for them to make a decision. And this is a pretty complicated legal issue. So I would expect and hope that the appeals court would take the time, they always do, necessary to really come to what I would call the correct decision. So I guess that's the way I view things at this point, Matt.
Yeah, all right, good. Well, thank you. I'm going to ask the board if they have any questions for John or comments in general. Malcolm, first.
Yeah, John. We've talked about this before. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm still struggle with the Commerce Clause, because I think what we want to do is protect residents, and we want to protect part-time residents. By putting in some statement, 2 options. One would be that you had to live in the property for a certain period of time. That doesn't directly say, it's not a direct, would that actually be against the Commerce Clause? Or if you own the property for a certain period of time?
Malcolm, I can only answer that question somewhat in the abstract, because every single decision that I've read are based upon very specific facts. But generally, the courts will find a Commerce Clause violation if they determine that the regulation is not reasonably, it is not related to a legitimate governmental concern that cannot be addressed through other less restrictive means. So there have been any number of cases where providing favorable treatment to persons who occupy a premise as a year-round, as year-round housing, can definitely run afoul of the Commerce Clause. So what needs to be done here is a very direct and targeted analysis of what, if any, other means of regulation can achieve the same result. I and that's a real challenge because I totally get the desire to promote year-round housing. Mr. Reed's article is interesting because the issue involves only lots where there are two dwelling units, one of which can be short-term rented without regard to the seasonal restrictions that appear otherwise in his proposal. But at this point, what he is proposing is if the other unit meets the definition of year-round housing, which was just put into your zoning bylaw last May, then they get that relief from those restrictions. And year-round housing is defined as where either the owner or a lessee occupies the premises for a minimum of 10 months out of the year. I'm not there yet to be perfectly candid with you on that approach being immune or insulated from the Commerce Clause. Now, one of the things that Mr. Reed is talking about also is putting in a severability clause. You have one in your general bylaw so that if one of the provisions, dealing with year-round housing as meeting the definition of year-round housing, if that were to be struck down by either the Attorney General or a court, the remainder of the bylaw would go into effect. So that's another approach that I think may have some merit, at least to consider adding that severability clause.
All right. It just seems all the ways around the Commerce Clause, number of days, season, it just gets so complicated. It kind of almost defeats the purpose of bylaw when you can't understand it.
I think that it's fair to say but let me just say that with respect to the Commerce Clause, I've seen any number of emails and opinions from other stakeholders objecting, at least to the initial proposal put forward by Mr. Reed, because it is deemed either expressly a violation of the Commerce Clause or that it is fundamentally unfair to seasonal residents. So it's not like you're not going to get pushback if your proposal passes with some kind of preference for year-rounders. But I do think that there is a continued opportunity here to continue the conversation and discussions and hopefully have something come forward, not just from petitioners, but perhaps from the planning board. And I know that their goal is simplicity. And that's my goal too. I think the simpler you can make this regulatory approach, the better it's going to be, both for the prospect of passage, the legal defense, and implementation.
Anyone else have anything else? No? I have a question. The Reed and Balser, both of theirs are 2/3 votes, correct?
Excuse me, Matt, I'm sorry.
Both the Arthur Reed and Carolyn Balser both have 2/3 votes.
Yes,
Majorities, because they're zoning. I think that, again, I have the same worry that I spoke of last week. I think we can't keep beating the same dead horse. We can't go back to the 1 day less than, which I think that, that group has moved off of, but we also can't go to the, make it legal in zoning and regulate it through bylaw. That's been voted down multiple times. So we have two sides in my mind that have to sort of come together. I'm glad that they're doing that. I look at the Reed article as a use article, not as I look at it as a use article, not as a carve out for islanders. I look at it as if you're using your house, or one of your houses or one of your units 10 months or more a year, whether you're renting it 10 months or more a year, that use allows you to be unlimited on the other part of on a room, on a garage, on another dwelling. I look at that as purely use, because if I have 2 or 3 houses, I'm not unlimited on 2 or 3 of them. I can only do it on the one that I'm in. If I want to do it on the others, I have to rent part of it year round. So I'm not as concerned as some people are about the Commerce Clause. Now, there are issues of, will that pass? Is that votable? Will people support it? But I'm not as concerned as some people about the Commerce Clause on that. I think that is use, and I think zoning is supposed to be based on use.
Matt, if I may, one of the suggestions I have made to Mr. Reed, Attorney Reed, is that he consider the requirement being that the second unit is occupied year-round, but not necessarily by the owner or not necessarily by a 10-month lease. But if it's occupied, and that could be a series of rental agreements that vary between 31 days, which is the threshold for short-term rental, and the full year. I don't know if that would achieve what he and others are looking for, but I think that would go a long way, in line with what you're talking about, potentially protecting the town against a Commerce Clause claim.
I think actually, John, that would make it more complicated, because then who's going to prove the continued, et cetera? A year-round lease is a year-round lease. It'd be fairly simple. And one part of that one unit is rented year-round, you're exempt from the other rules. And if you don't do a year-round lease, you can still rent, 7 times over 10 weeks or whatever the numbers were. So I get worried about, it has to be simple, and I think, and the other part is, this is, as much as it's a legal decision, this is a discussion, it's a political discussion.
Yep.
What is it that we can get 2/3 of the people to agree on? And it doesn't matter what I want or what any of us want. What can we get 2/3 of the people to come to the table and agree on? And I think and it's been clear that the two far ends of this have not been able to get 2/3. So.
Right.
Yeah. So what is it that we have to do? And part of my hope, if some sort of year-round lease, gave some advantages to the person who gave the year-round lease, that would be great if it gave more housing. I would like to see the housing advocates actually support something along those lines in whatever article comes forth. I think that we should, I think that's important for the community. And it should be simple, and it should be, we should be encouraging more year-round leases for teachers and doctors and bakers and everybody. I mean, particularly bakers. I have to house them all. No, but I think that we should really, however this progresses, I hope that that's something that happens, is more of the discussion. It came up in some of the work groups that Tom was involved with earlier and that I was, and it was kind of too late in some of those discussions. I hope some of those, I hope that is continued.
And Matt, I think it's important along those lines to really recognize the unique character of the island, and the need, certainly promotion of year-round housing is a huge issue and policy priority for the select board and the town and town meeting even. And again, the Commerce Clause analysis really goes to, is it a reasonable restriction where the impacts are on interstate commerce or are incidental? And I'm not saying we couldn't, make a good run at this in terms of defending it. I'm just concerned that it would require a court to really look at this differently than it's been looked at in a number of other jurisdictions. So my recommendation is continue the dialogue, continue talking, and with a goal to getting something on paper that is either from the planning board or, a consensus prior to the deadline for the submission of warrant articles in mid-November.
That would be great. Tom?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I think you said something key before, Matt, which is that nobody has 2/3. And I think that both sides, or again, you said 2 weeks ago, all 5 sides or whatever it is, nobody knows that. 2 weeks ago, the day after Select Board, Chair of the Planning Board, Dave Iverson, called me and he said, you and I meet with some folks who are in this debate. So we've spent about a dozen hours, including today, with not everybody, and we don't have a silver bullet or a magic wand to get 2/3, but we have met with a lot of different stakeholders on many sides of this. And I think we've heard it basically is a fact-finding mission and trying to learn and say, okay, well, there are the Commerce Clause issues. There are principal use, accessory use. There are limits on days. There are limits on changes of occupancy, et cetera. Where is the 2/3? And I think that Dave showed some really great leadership by suggesting this and really taking the lead to try and find this. And I agree with John's comments before on special town meeting that I don't think that an article with how far everyone is apart right now, trying to get to 2/3 is possible for special town meeting for November 4th. I think it puts serious strain on town admin, the plus department, the clerk's office, the schools, FinCom, planning board. And I think that in my conversations with Dave, he very much wants to get some form of consensus article for his board. And as John said, it's going to be a planning article. It's probably going to start there and then come to us. So I think I think it's positive. I think it's a positive show. So Libby, thank you for dropping everything and doing the special town meeting schedule and all that very, very quickly. But I think that these groups are aware of stuff like the Commerce Clause and willing to talk about this over time. And the ATM deadline, maybe circumstances will change. The appeals court will do something. We'll have to schedule a special town meeting. But until then, I don't think that the expediency is there. And let's let, as John said, time go by to coalesce with these groups meeting.
Yep. Brooke, and then.
Hi, no, I just wanted to add in, and thank you, Tom. I just want to add in that if there are stakeholders that haven't met with us yet, we're coming for you. So reach out to us if you don't hear from us, because we are happy to sit down and talk with you. Thank you.
Yeah. So I am really encouraged by all of the dialogue that's happening. The tone and tenor of the dialogue, the multitude of conversations that are happening. And I was going to say to Dave and Tom, how do people find you if you haven't talked to them yet? And, they both have town emails. So I encourage everyone who has a stake in this to please try to be part of these conversations. And I think I'm hopeful. I'm more hopeful now than I was. Loudly expressed frustration, and I agree. I appeal to the community not to force a special town meeting on us and give the work that people are doing, daily on this topic room to percolate out for annual town meeting.
So I think that's where we are. I don't hear I hear a consensus around letting this percolate a little longer and see if Dave can bring his horse back to life. No dead horses, Dave. All right. All right. All right. You can come back up and save me.
Okay, so I'm assuming you covered both 1 and 2 in that discussion,
Yes.
just to be clear. Are there any committee reports for this evening? Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Oh, I have one quick one. I met with, what was it, the non-voting taxpayers the other day, and I spoke to them, had a conversation, dialogue with them. This was part of it, and there were different viewpoints on this, which was good, of short-term rental viewpoints that came up even at that meeting, which was good. I think it was interesting that one of the biggest, at this time of year, one of the biggest complaints is parking and traffic. And that group could have talked about parking and traffic. I'm not beating you up, but could have talked about that for an hour or two. I would have loved it too. But I think I think it's where we, it's sort of, that's one thing that unites everyone here, is how do we improve that? And I hope that's something that we get back at. When we talk about our strategic plan, we're hearing it even for the Mid-Island, places that we, who would have thought we'd be getting it? And so I think that it needs to, percolate back up a bit. So, and that's what I got. Thanks.
Yeah, Tom and I went to the Civic Association's meeting the other night, and a couple of things. The new electric vehicle for the town was out there, hoping to encourage Sconset residents to have electric vehicles for tooling around Sconset. And also was really impressed by the presentations by Leah Hill and Mark Willett to the audience. Really informative, really, they were well received, and they both did a great job.
Excellent. All those in favor?
Aye.
Carries unanimously. Thank you, everyone.
You survived.